wish I didn't have done it. I'm praying on my bended knees. I wish I didn't have did it. If you know what I mean. I mean, I wish I shouldn't have said it. Words can be so unclean.
When did it start to feel serious to you? I mean, I know playing gigs sometimes feels serious to people, but I guess you reach a certain point in your life where the momentum is undeniable, I guess, yeah. Or it's a feeling inside you where things are just starting to kind of make sense and fall into place.
That's really a part of my life where actually Phil is going to come into the picture a lot more.
Yeah, that's pretty much where we met.
That's where we met. Because here's the thing, you know, into my 20s, I began touring a lot. I was a music director for a Grammy-winning blues artist named Grady Champion out of Canton, Mississippi. And I went to Europe, you know, 2 times with him. And then toured all around the United States and did all this stuff. But I never really applied the business aspects and all these things. And I basically got involved with a girl at the time and formed a little group with her. And things didn't work out, you know, and when all that ended up falling flat, me and Phil had already kind of met through a mutual drummer of mine. And we had played in a band and then kind of went our separate ways. But I never forgot about his talent. And I always thought, man, I could really build something with this guy. And from there, when this relationship ended and, you know, playing for this blues guy ended up basically falling through after a while, I decided to leave and do my own thing. I started really thinking about my future in music and what I need to do and needing to go my own path and needing to get to the radio and needing to get to the mainstream a lot more. And I called Phil up one night and I was like, look, man, you know, he had recorded some of our first recordings, but we hadn't finished the album yet. And we had a serious talk that night about what needs to happen and what he wants to do, what I want to do. And from there, we just started, it started off just talking about the future. And it just kept building and growing and growing. And a lot of times, like at that point in my life, I'd lost a lot of confidence in myself. You know?
Well, I was going to ask, what triggered such a deep introspective look, you know?
Well, you know what, to be completely honest about it, you know, I was with this girl and it was kind of a belittling situation where I had put myself in the background to try to promote her in the front of it, you know. And then it just kind of, you realize near the end of that you're kind of being used. And when all that ended, a lot of stuff in the town started happening, a lot of rumors got started, you know how that is. And it basically just left you feeling, you know, like you're in pieces there. And I just needed somebody who didn't have a lot of skin in the game, somebody who knew me as a person and knew my talent, but didn't care about all the drama around. And that's what led me to call Phil. You know, that's the honest truth about it. I'll let you speak a little bit about it.
That was the funniest thing. It's just the fact that, you know, we know each other through business.
Yeah.
And when you're in Will's situation, you have not only your relationship, but a business that you invested a lot into, all kind of go down in flames at once. Like that, like all of a sudden it's like, how do I pick up and start again? Because I have a lot to start over with, a lot of things that I deem my life. So I remember getting a call at 11 o'clock at night, you know, being like, I don't really know where to go from here. And it's like, all right, well, I've played with you. I was producing some stuff for you. I know you got a lot of stuff. I think your main plea to me was like, just help me record these songs. I have these songs to do. Please help me record these songs and get them out there. And that's where it started. And eventually we started getting, I think COVID hit.
Oh, God.
And once COVID hit, we were working together lightly, but it was like, okay, well, we have to figure out how to adjust. So let's start, say, trying to write jingles for people. You know, like commercial jingles, try and make some money. And through that, we had to start a business. And then from there, it became very, okay, now we're becoming official. Now it's almost like the development of, okay, now we have an LLC. Now we have to pay taxes like this. Now we have to, you know, get a bank account for the business. It became more professional.
He said you recorded some tracks for him prior to y'all working together?
Essentially, so I had my own band for a while named Orange Joe. And there was a lot of stuff that I had written.
Orange Joe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I don't know if you watched Futurama. Yeah.
Is that the?
That's where I stole it.
Well, I didn't even know that. I'm glad to hear that.
Either way, it was my favorite cartoon. But I had some stuff that I was producing as self-made LP, and then I had met Will, and we were doing some bar gigs for some money, and he was like, I have some songs that I write, and we started working some up, and it was like, okay, let's cut a single. So we cut a single. It's like, well, let me hear your next single. And so we basically started doing piece by piece, and then he was like, look, I had all this rock stuff we were going to do, and then I met this girl, now I have all this stuff I want to do, and I just have all this stuff. So basically we made a double album out of it. During COVID we decided, you know, it's either we don't have gigs, so we can try and make money elsewhere by doing jingles, but let's use the time and make this a social media thing. Let's record, let's still reach our people the way that we can during this.
Yeah.
And we basically finished up a double record with like 17 songs on it.
Yeah.
Put it out there. It was so polar as far as like, this is country rock, rock and roll, but this other side is complete traditional country Americana. So we basically had two sides of country to try and market it to. And so.
Yeah, and what's, you know, getting back to the original question about taking it seriously, look, there's no doubt that the COVID, pandemic was something that was terrible on the world as a whole. But I'm also a believer that you can take luck and turn it around. And really the COVID pandemic is really where we started to kind of flourish in a sense, because it made us have to change our thinking from just playing gigs to having to look at it from a more promotional stand view, and then it led to this album coming out. Mm-hmm. And the story behind the album, both sides of the tracks, is really where things started going, wow, this is changing, you know. I mean, radio stations were playing this all over the world and being like, y'all recorded this as a two-man partnership, and it's playing all over the world, you know. So that really was when we went from just being a bar band to really being more of an original act taken seriously. You know.
It was funny that you brought up how polar the first album was, because I don't think that's very uncommon with bands that are just getting together and putting out their first piece of work, especially if it's not something that they're sitting on for very many years.
Yeah.
The material may accumulate over time, and that takes years to come together, and probably it comes from different sources within the band. So the influences are different. You put it together and it feels strange because it's on one body of work, but it's many different influences. And it happened at the same time as COVID, which was a fork in the road for a lot of musicians. So it kind of forced you to up your business game a little bit and kind of choose a lane as far as your genre and your style, I suppose.
Yes.
But a lot of people, man, just like you said, turn your luck around. There's so many musicians that I've interviewed that it was the genesis for their first solo album, or it was the reason that they came out with 41 music videos in 30 days on social media. It caused people to try and reach out and interact in different mediums. We were all forced to, you know. Nobody knew what festing in place was, or streaming, or any of these things, you know.
Live stream concerts.
Right, it became commonplace all of a sudden. So, I mean, it opened up new opportunities that there were just alternatives that weren't there before, you know?
It made us kind of think, because there were a lot of people, it was sad to say, there were a lot of people who just started selling everything. They're just like, you know what?
Yeah, they have groups disbanded.
I'm done with all this.
Yeah.
And the way we looked at it was, either we're going to do this, or we're going to be one of the few who are left on the other side, who have been constant through this and have had, you know, something built by the end of this, so that by the end of this, we're ready to go.
Yeah.
You know, we've got a show, we've got people who want to get out there and see music. We're here.
Sure.
You know, and even on a more sentimental side, you know, the album that we released, both sides of the tracks, a lot of the musicians and promoters on that record are no longer here. You know, like we did a duet with a very talented blues man out of Greenville, Mississippi named Kern Pratt. Mm-hmm. And Kern was one of those blues guys that to me was always underappreciated. He never really got his due in music, but he lives on one of the tracks on that album called A New Kind of Blues.
Yeah.
And he passed on. Like we recorded the track, it got on blues radio worldwide.
It's about COVID.
And it's about COVID, and then he died of COVID.
Wow.
Like Christmas Eve that year.
Christmas Eve, man. So it's almost like this album is, in a spiritual way, keeping the memory alive of a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Kenneth Dunn, who promoted.
Yeah, 'cause we put that out during the pandemic, and it was like, oh, this is topical, you know, and it's a blues tune, and blues people love blues, especially new blues at any time. So it's like, oh, it's topical, it's new blues. It got out there, and Kern got like pretty much like a last hurrah, like a last strong hurrah.
Sure.
Like in the last, because I mean, we released it, and then like I think it was like 4 months later he passed on.
Man, it was a polarizing and traumatizing time. You know, like Kern passed, Kenneth Dunn, who was a long-time booking agent of ours, passed, and then my very own brother, who was instrumental in this album, passed as well. So at that time, you know, like I look at that album as a very personal experience, because even though my brother didn't record on it, he was involved in it. So to me, all these people who helped launch this album, you know, I hate to say it, but at this point, a lot of it, all that's really left at the helm is really me and you, Phil, and the team behind us. But we lost a lot of good people during that, you know, and I've never forgotten it. You know?
I kind of look at them as like they can act anyway, as time capsules, so to speak, because they kind of preserve where you were at emotionally and mentally during that part of your life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's time in a bottle, man. That's really what the album is to me.
Yeah.
You know, to you, it's probably a lot of heavy lifting work, man. You worked hard, and he does need more props as a producer, man. The great work you did on that album still stands out.
It was fun. Well, I was lucky enough with COVID, we were actually able to get some killer players that we wouldn't be able to get otherwise. One of the one that I like put in the spotlight is we got Michael Cleveland, who's literally like he wins like best bluegrass fiddle award like years in a row. Like he's like the guy in Nashville. It's like, oh yeah, he's like this blind guy with a killer touch. Pretty much plays anything you want out of like folk instruments. But I think he was on Grand Ole Opry at 9 years old.
Wow.
Played behind Alison Krauss, Doc Watson, Marty Stewart, some of the best in country music, and I'm like, man, this guy's recording on our album. It's like, man,
That was exciting, huh?
Absolutely monster. And he was so nice. He was like, let me know if there's any changes you want to make. I'm all ears. I was like, dude, this is beautiful.
Dude, he cut it in one take. One take.
My job's so easy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Where did y'all work on this project at?
Well, that's the cool thing about it, is that we formed our own label, Homegrown Productions and Roanoke Records. And what makes me and Phil different from a lot of artists is that everything that comes out under my name or his comes out of that label.
Well, it's become more modern now for people to take it home and do it themselves, but basically what we did during COVID is we said, okay, we have some friends who record drums. Let's get in the studio, get the drums, but everything else can be done from our house.
Sure.
You know, we've got amps, we've got mics, we can make it loud. So we pretty much sat in the house and worked everything out for months and months and months. And basically had an at-home record that sounds pretty damn good to me.
Well, that to me is the beauty of it. You know, having a record that come out of our own minds and homes that it's so stripped down like that, for it to go worldwide really blew me away. And I have some funny memories.
Yeah, you're used to tape, like studio in the country.
Yeah, man, I was recording on tape and stuff. That's how I like the sound of it. But I remember a story in general that I thought was really funny was I was talking with Kern Pratt, and I said, look, we want to get your vocals, your guitar playing. He's like, well, what studio are we going to go to? I mean, COVID's done shut everything down. I said, we're going to come to you, man. And he was like, in what way is that? I was like, Phil's going to bring a little laptop, a few boxes, man, and we'll get it going. Well, we get over there, I think Kern was on about his 5th beer.
Yeah.
And he's like,
getting bluesy.
Yeah, he got very bluesy. And then we record this and get it done, and he's like, okay. When he hears the finished product, he's like, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. I'm like, well, and you recorded it drunk, and that's what's really brilliant.
Well, I remember I pulled everything out. You know, it was a laptop, a couple preamps, getting ready to the microphones, and he's like, that's a studio? That's all you need? It's like, that's all you need today.
Yeah, and this is not 1967, man.
It's become so easy for musicians to make their own stuff at home now. That was the thing with COVID, was we actually got in a little bit of hot water because we kept trying to put stuff out, and we kept getting communications back from the distribution people being like, look, usually it takes us like 2 weeks to get this done. That's fine. But right now, everybody's stuck inside. Everybody's making music. Everybody's sending it to us.
Really?
It's going to take longer for us. We're not going to be able to meet the due date that you want.
That's right.
Oh boy, well, we told everybody.
We're going to have to push that release date back a little bit. Yeah.
So, and you know, people were in COVID, they were entertainment lists almost, and they were like, when is this stuff coming out?
Really?
We were waiting on it. This is like,
Well, that's funny. That kind of solidifies the idea that COVID was the inspiration for a lot of work.
It was
a lot of creative works.
You have a lot of people who are used to being out there and expressing themselves in spotlights to other people, and now you have cooped them up once again and made them.
Yeah, well, I mean,
teenagers.
as an artist too, think about it. You got time spent making an album, and you have time spent touring for that album. So, a lot of times these guys, if they're getting tons of gigs, they're not setting aside that time necessary for the writing process. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, man. At times, and I don't mean this in a negative light. The pandemic was terrible, but at times I miss the freedom of just creating something where you're not obligated. Because see, once the COVID pandemic ended, me and Phil were fortunate that we had laid down the groundwork to become a touring act, more of a touring act, and to get on the road more and more. And now things are rolling so fast that we have to look at it almost like Eminem does. Like, this is a 9 to 5 job. We get there Monday through Sunday, and we're working constantly just to make sure that the tours and the content and all this happen, you know?
It's like we pretty much just started being able to travel out more to places like last year we went to Ohio and Switzerland. We just got back from Bangkok. And now there's travel stuff involved in a whole nother world of the business. You know, we're musicians, and now we have to be semi-lawyers and accountants.
You gotta be it, dude. You gotta know, yeah.
If there's anybody that's like the most anti-business people on this earth, it's musicians, which is such the irony, you know, to see people try to insert themselves, not so much insert themselves, but to protect themselves.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a musician. I don't want to file this paperwork.
It's like, dude, I started playing music so that I didn't have to be a businessman.
Yeah,
and I woke up one day and I'm a fucking businessman, you know?
What's interesting to me though is it's almost like the literal, like almost purest form of capitalism in a sense, where it's like, I have something in my brain that I have made for you.
Yeah.
Do you like it?
Yeah.
But don't steal it.
It's like you have to earn people's respect through your work. You can't just be like, hey, you know, is this good enough for you?
Sure. You know, what's ironic, though, speaking of, is that your father sat you down at 15 and warned you about the business side of things.
Yeah.
And maybe you didn't hear it at 15, but when it came to the pandemic, or I'm sorry, after your fallout with the first arrangement you had with the young lady, business again was brought to the forefront. It actually was the steps that took you out of the hole that you found yourself in.
I don't think no words can be truer, because, you know, it's funny, the things you hear as a kid, you remember. You know, it leaves a lasting impression on you. And it seems like even then I was always looking for the right people. And I will tell you that in this business, the right people can make or break you, from a sound man to a business partner. If you don't have the right people, you will not find success.
Yeah.
And that always stayed on my mind from my dad's words to me, is that I gotta find like-minded people with the same work ethic and the same drive. And every bump in the road from the pandemic down the line has always brought me back to those words. You know, get it back to the foundation, get the right people behind you, and start pulling through all this. You know?
Sure, it's a refinement process.
Yeah,
sure.
So those words have kind of stayed with me my whole life, and they will continue to.
It's always the stuff that you're just like, why didn't I listen to that back then? That really just like drives all your decisions home like later. It's like, I could have been doing this all along.
I think our vision gets clouded, man, because we refute the simplest forms of advice, and really at its essence, that's what we needed to hear. We were just too pig-headed at the time, you know.
Too young, too pig-headed.
Sure.
Yeah.
I used to substitute like high school, and like they didn't understand how I felt about these kids, because you know, I was there for a job. I wanted to get out and go gig. You know, I wanted to be there less than they did, and they were like, I don't understand why this, you know, younger person I babysit is so stupid. I try and help them so much. I try and help them. I try and tell them things that help them. They don't listen. I'm like, so you're not going to do that piece of paper that I gave you. It's going to take you 10 minutes to do.
Yeah.
For 90 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help you. Like, I'm telling you things that help you.
Resist. I think that's where they go with that.
Damn it, subscribe! They'll like you, but you gotta go.